Hey MGTOWs, this is Vincent. I just got home from work, and it was Friday today, and I've got 2 glorious days off ahead of me. I'm still a little grody. I didn't really shower yet, so I'm greasy, but who cares? Nobody cares what I look like. I wanted to cover several different subjects in this video. This is just sort of I don't know if it'll be quick, but I just want to give an overview of what I want to cover in this video. First one I'd like to cover is like we are the prize as men, and I'd like to kind of think about what it is that women lose when a man goes MGTOW over the years, because it's been 21 years for me. You know, it's getting really close to 22 years since I've gone MGTOW, and that's a lot of money that they have lost. Okay, second thing I want to cover is my cholesterol levels. They have changed, and the only thing that has changed is just one thing in my life, and it's made a dramatic impact apparently on my cholesterol levels. Third thing I'd like to cover is economic cycles. Basically every 7 to 10 years we have an economic cycle, an economic recession, and just like clockwork it is starting, but the thing is it all takes place so slowly it's really hard for normal people to see it. You have to be red-pilled to really get your brain wrapped around this, and then if you know about these things, you can take advantage of them and profit from it. And the last thing I'd like to cover is directed energy weapons in California, and it's crazy sounding, guys. It really sounds nuts. It sounds like science fiction, but it really looks like this is what's happening. So let me go ahead and start with the first thing I'd like to cover, which is, as John from MGTOW is Freedom used to say, we are the prize. Several MGTOWs have said that, and it is so right. Basically, let me flip over to, I was just pouring through an old Social Security income statement, and there it is right there. So basically, I started out a long time ago earning nothing. I think this was a buffet restaurant that I was working in. Then 83, joined the Army, and you earned just shit wages in the Army. But it was a long time ago, so that was actually more money than it looks like now. 90, I did a few dead-end jobs. 1992, I got out of the military, and obviously my wages dropped, and I spent 2 years in diesel school. And you can, if you live frugal and you have some savings, and I also got unemployment during that time, and that's what I was getting. And then I went to work for like $9 an hour back in 94, and my wages gradually came up and up. And as a younger man, I would periodically, get exasperated by where I was working, and I would just say, screw you guys. And then I would roll my toolbox into a storage locker and take about 4 months off. Then I'd go looking for another job. Then basically, as time goes on, it has gone on until I generally like to scan things like this, but this is my most recent one was that I got. I scanned it in 2014. This little scanner here it's a dandy. It's an HP. You can throw a whole stack of papers in there. Hit that little PDF button right there, and it'll just cycle and feed all of those pages through. You can do like 30 or 40 pages at a time, and then it'll recognize the text so that you can like do word searches. So if like I take a manual apart, I can scan it, and then it's in my phone, and I can do a word search through it. And it's so much easier and faster to have that on my phone and just searchable than it is to have binders and filing cabinets full of freaking manuals for things that I might not consult for like once every 3 years, but the thing is just taking up space. But with this ability to scan these documents and have them compressed into a PDF file on your phone, guys, I don't know how to tell you young guys how absolutely astounding that is. It's almost like I'm living in science fiction land. And it's all of that information is just right at my fingertips. And plus you can do searches through search engines online and find information that's just, guys, I don't know how to tell you how it was before this happened. I mean, there's a lot of bad shit nowadays in, all the high-tech control grid, China's social credit system, all of this crap. But there is such power in having so much information just at our hands, at our fingertips. I've got like 1.5 tons of survival type manuals, for like the zombie apocalypse in my phone, and it's all just right there and ready. I have that encrypted database that has like insurance forms and receipts for everything, bills. Just the other day, in fact, just day before yesterday, I copied my encrypted database onto my phone, one of my old Galaxy Note 4 that I keep in my toolbox at work. And if like something happens to my house and it just like a 747 drops on it and takes my phone out too, all I have to do is get to work, and then I can get that phone, and then I've got all of this information, like about 7 or 8 previous scanned driver's licenses, and I've seen people, like I've seen a couple of people who were like prepper survivalists, but their cabin burned down, and the guy was lucky because he had his wallet in this truck, but the girl had no way of proving who she was, and she had a bitch of a time trying to get documentation to prove who she was so that she could reestablish her identity and get identification, and it was a bitch and a half. Whereas I have a lot of that stuff just right in the phone. Then the safe deposit box at the bank, I've got my birth certificate. So basically, I've got the ability, that if my house just obliterated somehow, I would be able to restart everything much more easily by having that database in that phone and in my toolbox at work. Having backups of information outside your house, man, that is just the way to go. It's like, I would almost consider it mandatory. It's just as important as having beans and bullets and having one of these little beauties, so you can probably see it behind me right there. A means of self-defense is just a tremendous thing to have. Yeah, if a zombie kicks in the door and says "blah brains," I can basically take him out with this with no problem at all. It looks like it's not dialed in, but it is. So in any case, so back to what I was saying before I got diverted. If you consider that maybe my average wages for the last 21 years, if a woman gets about half of it, let's call that about 25,000 a year. Um, the price that a woman or women in general have paid, just in sheer income alone, not my ability to fix cars and fix the roof and do all of this stuff, to maintain a house. Women have lost, 500,000, $525,000 just in the last 21 years. So basically, that is real money, and it's a real price and a real cost, which has been applied against women, and one particular woman, or more than one, out there now, who has either basically that the woman I would have ended up marrying, she has of course either become a cat lady living in a shitbox apartment and not living well, not enjoying life, and her apartment rent goes up every single year, and she probably has nothing, right? And now has even less than nothing because she's probably 45 years old and probably has no kids and is poor and is like on antidepressants. And if she had partnered with me all of those years ago, she would have gained tremendous earning capacity and not to mention my ability to create value, just because I'm a man. And most men have the ability to pick up a tool and change the oil in a car and pay a fraction of the price that it would cost to take it to like Pennzoil, Jiffy Lube, whatever. And we can do various things that save a lot of money. And that woman, because of feminism, because of the family court system, because of the horrible way our society treats men, she has lost all of that. And if she did find another guy, right, that guy has been taken from another woman who would have married him, and all the way down the line until somewhere along that line there is a woman who is involuntarily single because I went MGTOW. It might not be the one I would have married, but she married another guy and took that guy off the market, and then the woman who was going to marry him was without a guy, and she may have found a guy, and but eventually, when it gets right down to it, somewhere out there is a woman who is involuntarily single because I went MGTOW, and she is now $525,000 less wealthy and less well off, amongst the limitless additional benefits a woman gets from partnering with a man. And not to mention the things that are really hard to describe: the company, the my ability to plan, and make good decisions and not make emotional decisions. all of that incredible value has been lost. And all of those tremendous, amazing gifts that I have and had for the last 21 years of being MGTOW, that has all been lost to some woman out there. Sucks to be her. So all of that value instead has been concentrated within my own life, and it's paid dividends and grown. And even now, with the massive collapse of bitcoins, I could go overseas just on what I have, without even counting the house, and live for 10 or 12 years fairly well until Social Security started. And then if I had the house on top of that, that's about 300 grand paid off. I could live very well. But I'm still, but back to the Bitcoins things, I am still socking away $1,000 every paycheck, and that's $2,000 every month, right into Bitcoins, taking that shit, dumping it into cold storage. And the time is coming when I suspect we're sort of in the 2015 period right now, where we are bottoming, or if we're not bottomed, we are really close to it. And basically, in 2015, the price bottomed at 200 and then ended about 450, so it more than doubled. So during this year, if it's a duplicate of 2015, it would be, at the end of this year, it would be about $8,000. And all that time, I will be able to sock away more Bitcoins throughout this whole year. And then the next year, if it's like 2016, it doubled again. That would be 16,000. That's way more than I need to retire even in the States. So all of that value, all of that tremendous capacity has been lost to some woman out there, and she is dramatically less wealthy, dramatically less well off, and the company I could have given her, the decision making ability, the focus, and just everything a man can do has been lost to her, and she is sitting there living living with her cats. Oh well, sucks to be her. Okay, so that is basically what women have lost, or what some woman has lost, because I and you guys have gone MGTOW. How counting all of the MGTOW in the country, or even in the world, counting all of those millions of men who have gone MGTOW and have taken all of that wealth and power and productivity and talent and skill and company and caring and nurturing and all of that, taken all of that back. That is like a nuclear war level of damage to a lot of women. So basically, yeah, it sucks to be them, and they fell for feminism. They were saying rah rah, men suck, burning the bras, and let's all abort our fetuses. Oh, ain't that a great idea? So it's just a friggin' catastrophe for everybody involved, including me. I would have liked to have had a family. I'm like an involuntary MGTOW. I would have preferred. I had totally planned to do the whole family thing, and it took me 4 months of absolute agony of indecision, to the point where I was like just balanced on a knife edge. How could I possibly marry when my wife could just call the police and have me hauled off to jail? How on earth can I live with that? How can I live that way? And how can I live with that hanging over my head? And I realized I just can't do it. I just couldn't do it. And it took me 4 months to finally reach that after that internal struggle, and talking to older mechanics and talking to everybody about their divorces, and reading what I could online with the internet of that time, and reading things like The Myth of Male Power by Warren Farrell. And then finally, after about 4 months of agonizing over it, I finally realized that the decision had been made. I just can't do it. It doesn't make sense. So I didn't do it. And women will say, oh, that's impossible. How could a man possibly decide not to have kids? Women have this problem. They think that everybody thinks like they do, right? They don't understand. They can't make that mental leap truly into another person's shoes. They can't understand that the motivations of a man can be different from the motivations of hurt, right? They often think if they're real shitbags, right, and they cheat and they're likely to cheat and do all kinds of nasty shit, they'll suspect everybody else of doing that too, right? And they won't understand that some people aren't like that. Some people are good people, and they aren't just gonna fuck other people over at the drop of a hat, right? So so they just can't understand it. And the same way they can't understand that we are actually willing to do this, right? Because to them it's like unthinkable. How could I possibly not have a family from their perspective? And as a result, they think that we feel the same way, but we don't. We, if it doesn't make sense, will go MGTOW. And when a man goes MGTOW, he oftentimes, in fact, I would say usually, he goes MGTOW forever. And all of the abilities and skills and strength and talent and focus and drive and earnings and tenderness and nurturing and assistance and help at everything and company, all of that tremendous value has been lost when the gifts that we have to give are not appreciated, and when the gifts that we have to give are not appreciated. And then if they throw us when they throw us under the bus so often, then the result is the gifts that we have to give in such abundance will not be given. So they are forced to live much more limited, much less wealthy, much less happy lives as a result. And fuck them, who cares? Go MGTOW. Okay, now I'd like to basically talk about the second subject, which is touching on my cholesterol levels. I was just looking through my encrypted database, and I punched up my cholesterol levels from 2015, and it was high. It was 187, which is like to the point where they're going to put you on frickin' cholesterol medication, right? And I was not going to be doing that shit. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I'm not taking cholesterol medication. And I just figured I would just cut back on sugar and stuff like that. And but then just recently, let me flip over to that. Okay. My most recent bad cholesterol has improved dramatically. It's down to 117, which is like apparently it's like pretty much okay. And what is the only thing that I have changed during that time? That is going much lower carb, cutting out wheat, or cutting, like, except on maybe cheat day, and I cut out sugar, and wheat and rice and pretty much anything that's really carby, and I went heavy on eggs and meat and things like that. And so basically that is the only change that I'm not really running or doing any serious exercise except for my mechanic job. So it made the difference between serious cholesterol and okay cholesterol, right? So so the low carb diet, even though I was eating more meat and more fat and more butter and stuff, much more eggs. I eat about 6 a day. All of that, even though even though I'm eating so much more oils, um, I have my cholesterol has improved dramatically, right? And they're saying that it's, the medical industry were saying, oh, eat carbs and cut way back on eggs. Yeah. Those people they don't know what they're talking about. Or if they do, they want us to be sick so that we'll be regular customers of theirs and profit them and end up impoverished and poor and dying early, right? That's what profits the medical industry. They don't give a rat's ass about us. So low carb, who thought? Improved your cholesterol. Go figure. So that's what I would like to talk about, the cholesterol levels. Now, let's go ahead and touch on the economic cycles, because I've spoken to you guys before about how about every 7 to 10 years we drop into a recession, right? And they call it a recession oftentimes after the fact. Like back in the 2008 recession, they often didn't really call it a recession until it was like more advanced. So and they seem to occur about every 7 to 10 years, right? So we had like early 90s, 93 or so. Then we had 2000, the dot-com crash. Then we had 2008. And both of the most recent recessions, I remember it was like irrational exuberance, and things were going amazing. And then the Feds started raising interest rates. And then in real estate was vastly more expensive. Debt was very much more expensive, or gradually more expensive. And then it's like they just choked the economy, and to keep it from running away and like devaluing the currency, I guess. But it's like every 7 to 10 years they basically raise the interest rates, and then then business can't do its job as well, and then people downsize because people don't get loans, like when they try to get a mortgage for a house or commercial real estate or buying a company or something. Those loans are more expensive because the interest rates are higher, right? And then economic activity slows down, and then you start having layoffs, and then things get bearish, and then real estate, when people lose their jobs, they stop paying their mortgage payments. Then they lose their house, and then that inventory goes on the market, and it pushes the price down, and then stocks they drop too. And then you start having, when things get really serious, the banks are stuck with a bunch of non-productive real estate, and then they fall below capitalization, and then they have to go out of business. Then brokerages like Merrill Lynch, and then like commodities brokers like MF Global, they are hit by the contagion, and then they start going out of business. And that elite guy, I can't remember his name, who ran MF Global, just used everybody's accounts in in the customer accounts, and to make bets and gambling on various things, and he lost the money, and he never saw the inside of a jail cell. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to have another 2008. It may have taken a lot longer than I expected. I was expecting it to start in like 2017, but now it's 2019, and it may be late, but it is here. The stock market is beginning to fall, and there's going to be certain things happening when this occurs. People are going to lose their houses. They're going to have to shed assets like real estate, and then they're going to have to shed stocks because they aren't working. So they got to pay for their house or their groceries somehow. And then real estate will fall, and people who hold like big mortgages on their house, like right up to the edge, will suddenly find themselves underwater. And it's happened to several mechanic friends of mine at work. They were way underwater, and then they just said, okay, no problem, I'll just give it back to the bank. And they did. And then the bank stuck with that real estate, tries to sell it into the market, and the real estate prices just keep going down to down, 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 down for about 2 years. And same thing happened before. And when people can no longer trust the brokerages and the banks to hold their wealth for them without going bankrupt and wiping them out, people are going to want to do something that they wanted to do back in the 2008 recession, and that's hold assets which they can hold themselves and put their money into investments that they can hold themselves, which back then was precious metals. I'm going to have to pause you for a second. Okay, I'm back. Darn aging bladder. There are certain advantages to being 54 years old, but there are some disadvantages too, and that's one of them. Okay, so what I expect is what happened during the 2008 recession. My gold went up 70% and my silver went up 260%. So I expect the same thing to happen with the major cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. People are going to want to have assets that they can hold themselves outside of a brokerage or a bank or an exchange. They're going to want to have those things to hold themselves, and basically, I expect Bitcoin to benefit from this, and I expect my precious metals to go up too, and I still have them. So I've even added to them to some degree, like back in 2015, 2016, actually like 2016 and 2017 when the price was really low. I started picking up some silver again. So okay, so that's what I expect to see over the next 2 or 3 years. I expect that the recession, this next recession, will hit, and it'll hit hard. We're going to see all of these things happen, and when that occurs, bitcoins and precious metals should go up, and in 2 years or so, everything is going to be on sale. You'll be able to like buy houses, you'll be able to buy stocks, jet skis, quads, vehicles, all of those things, except maybe RVs, because a lot of people will probably be moving into RVs. All of those assets will be cheap, and it's like it happens about every 7 to 10 years, and it's been happening for 100 and something years. And the elites, they raise the interest rates, and then the economy falls on its face, and then after about a couple of years of hardship, the prices of those assets are in the toilet, and then they create money and use their precious metals and whatnot to swoop in there and haul off and purchase like assets for pennies on the dollar. And then once they've got all of those assets, then they restart the whole mess, drop the interest rates back down, and start the whole process over again. Then people go back to work and bust their asses and try to regain something from the whole mess. And then the wealthy elites, they then start selling those assets into the higher prices about 4 years into the recovery. And then once things go irrationally exuberant again, then they start raising interest rates and cause another recession. It's like a very slow heartbeat in the economy. It just keeps going and going and going and going, and it's so slow, most normal people can't really see it or predict it or even take it into account. and it's not mentioned in like high school or the corporate media. Because they profit. In order to really profit from it, the normal people can't be aware of it, so it's never on TV. It's never um, the only place you will get it is other than the corporate media, from regular people and bloggers and whatnot. They will tell you about this stuff, and prepper channels, and so that's how you can get that information, but you cannot get it from CNBC. So, okay, that's the economic cycles, and that's what I expect to see coming. I expect to see stocks and real estate continue to fall over the next 2 years, and I expect precious metals and cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, to get a really nice boost. And man, the technology in crypto, especially Bitcoins, is really going. There's a Lightning wallet out of Australia. It's a two-way Lightning wallet, and the fees on it are just tiny. And you can send a couple of satoshis to somebody, and the fees are just practically non-existent. And they will be so low that it will be effective and practical for a guy in India or Venezuela to go to a fruit cart and buy a single mango with Bitcoin, and the Bitcoins will be more likely to hold their value, because generally Bitcoin trades sideways or it goes up. And we only get these big, huge, catastrophic crashes about maybe once every 4 years or so, after irrational exuberance takes over, and then the market's got to come down. But usually Bitcoins are much more sedate and stable than 2017, that crazy up from 1,000 to 19,000. That is unusual. And when you get a roaring bull market that overheats that high, you gotta have a bear market afterwards. So we had a whole year of a bear market, and if we are not done with the bear market right now, man, we are really close. It's either bottomed or it's like really close to the bottom. In any case, I am eagerly pulling $1,000 out of every single paycheck, dumping it into Bitcoin, because these prices will not last. Just like in 2015, I knew the prices that we were paying then for Bitcoins would not last. It would be all too soon. It would be gone. And it is gone. But still, $4,000 Bitcoins, give it about 2 years, 4,000 will be, it'll sound like $200 Bitcoins that we enjoyed for a while in 2015. It'll sound like people will be saying, you got Bitcoins for $4,000. You've got to be effing kidding me. Because eventually, I am of the opinion that Bitcoins will be like $1 million each, like in 10 years or so. And probably over 100 grand in 2 years. That is my considered opinion. But I'm a diesel mechanic. Don't take that as financial advice. Whatever. Okay, last thing I would like to cover is that crazy science fiction sounding insanity that happened in California, where whole neighborhoods would just burn to ash, and the metal components inside the wreckage would just be warped, and the aluminum would be melted. There was just nothing left, right? But right next to the houses that burned, trees were just a little bit singed, but they were not burned. So here's one picture from a video, and you can see like trees and trees and trees, and then some trees along the street that didn't burn. All of these trees, none of this is in the corporate media, by the way. So and this picture sure as heck is not in the corporate media because it screams directed energy weapons. Everything, and people who were suddenly saw that their house just suddenly started burning everywhere in the house, and they like fled the house, and their neighbors' houses were burning. All the whole neighborhood was just, and no embers weren't falling or anything. They just spontaneously combusted. And apparently what has occurred is it's metal, and things that are metal just burned. Like one guy had a generator, and it wasn't plugged in or anything, but it just overheated, and and just burned. And cars burned down, and the glass melted, and the aluminum wheels melted into puddles and just flowed across the concrete. And right next to these things that were just completely incinerating, there were like plastic recycle bins and things like that were just a little bit warped from the heat, but they did not burn. And what appears to be the trigger is that it's a location that is in sort of a semi-wilderness, and things that have been identified by the United Nations as places where they don't want people to live. And like you can see, this neighborhood is semi-rural, and every single house just burned to ash, and the trees right next to it were not burned. And what the thing is that causes the houses to burn are metal next to wood, like wires in a house wall, or like cars, or big metal cabinets and whatnot. All of the metal things just suddenly got blistering hot, and anything combustible next to them just burned. And then some of the things that had lower melting temperatures would actually melt or burn, like the copper wires and the aluminum wheels on the cars. They just burned, and all at once. And it appears, and the only thing that can really make metal really combust like that is if it's ferrous and it's like a magnetic metal, you can put it in a magnetic furnace and melt it. And like the polarity of the magnetism shifting causes it to heat up. And also things what can cause metal to heat up are really, really, really strong microwaves. Like if you put a metal spoon or something in a microwave, it'll spark and then get really hot, and it can catch fire. And apparently this is what's happening. Somehow large amounts of microwave radiation has been directed against these neighborhoods, and that is the result. Is absolutely insanely science fiction crazy. It just is just absolutely almost impossible to believe, but the evidence is like right here. The house just burns to absolute ash, and things around it are not touched or barely singed. And there was one house that was actually half burned, as if it just was like cut with a giant knife, and part of it burned to ash and the rest of it was still standing. So what have we learned from this? If you live in a rural area, something like this, you might want to consider keeping some things away from your house. Like if you have important papers, scan it all and keep it, out of your house, like in a bank vault, or if you're a mechanic like me, you can put it in a toolbox at work, or if you have a desk at work, can maybe lock it into an encrypted database. Absolutely use an encrypted database to store all this information. And I prefer an app on Android called EDS, and it's easily downloadable, and there's videos on YouTube on how to use it. Get in the habit of scanning important information and keeping it away from where you live, or backing it up elsewhere as well. So, and then, have backup sources of wealth, maybe something buried. So that if your house like totally implodes, this is a very rare thing, but it could conceivably be a danger in the future to people who live like pretty rural, in like rural neighborhoods like that. Individual houses way out in the sticks appear not to have been touched, but I can't really be sure of that. But the neighborhoods like this, it's just insanity. It's like science fiction, but it's something we should be aware of so that we can plan for. So, as crazy as that sounds. So, okay, so back to this. If that occurred to me, I could lose everything in the house and I would still have insurance forms, insurance documents, receipts for most things. All of my credit card receipts, I always scan those, and those show purchases, which can also be used for insurance to get like insurance, insurance compensation, and with the homeowner's insurance, and all of those things, having all that information at your fingertips in a safe place, more than one safe place, and use a good password, it could really save you. It could really save your butt. Because otherwise they'd say, well, prove how much stuff you had. Oh, I don't think you had that. But if you have, receipts and credit card transactions, you can say, here it is right here. So, okay, so to close, I'd like to